Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to The Adventrian. You folks are all in for a special treat tonight. This show isn't like the usual lineup, but we still think it's something that you would enjoy. So without further ado, I present to you the new horror of Google Translate. Around the new year of 2018, several videos and articles came out about Google Translate's strange responses when it was given nonsense to work with. Oftentimes, users would put in repetitive words or phrases with incorrect spacing to get unusual and often creepy responses. This phenomenon, now dubbed TranslateGate, was resolved fairly quickly before I had the opportunity to mess with it or to get any interesting results of my own. If you are interested in this first iteration of Google Translate's unusual responses, I'll put a link in the description down below. This incident faded quickly from the public's minds as bigger and more recent stories flooded our feeds, but this phenomenon was far from over. The original instance of TranslateGate just included phrases and comments from what seemed to be comments or normal conversations that Google Translate's neural network was just picking up from around the internet. But what makes this instance of TranslateGate much more interesting than last time is the involvement of religious scriptures and prophecies. Now, the majority of my information is coming from r/Google Translate and r/TranslateGate. I would highly recommend that you check these subreddits out just in case if I missed something. Now, I've talked a lot about the history of this, but let's look at some real examples of what happens when you type these seemingly innocuous phrases. So let's start things off pretty simple. Here I'm typing in random vowels that brings up creepy messages very similar to the original TranslateGate. This one it reads, "There is no one in me." We also found a response that makes it seem like Google's AI is actually trying to talk with us, but that can't be, right? Nah. Anyways, where was I? Oh, right. This stuff is all creepy, but we've all seen it before. So what about the religious stuff? Again, by typing a random series of vowels with spaces in between, we're able to pull up this scripture right here. "And he said unto me, what is thy name?" And if we continue along this path, by making random edits and small changes to our original line of vowels, we continually get different scriptures, each with a slight variation on the one before. Interested? There's more. If we continually type nigh over and over again, we get "it is near," very near. But what is that? What is near? Well, if you continuously type dog into Google Translate, I think you find your answer. This response reads, "Doomsday clock is 3 minutes at 12. We are experiencing characters and dramatic developments in the world, which indicate that we are increasingly approaching the end times and Jesus' return." As creepy as that may seem, it's not the most interesting one I found. That title goes to repeatedly typing the letters A and G over and over again in Google Translate. By doing this, it kind of pulls up a story, in my opinion. It starts off with some scriptural sounding things, and then it eventually pulls up some actual scriptures and numbers in the New Living Testament, which is a pretty common form of the Bible. And by continuing to type in ag over and over and over again, you get more and more scriptures all telling about the same story, with fighting, the sons of Gershon, Israel, God's name, telling a strange yet compelling narrative. So what in the world is going on? Now, if we take the theory from last time, that Google Translate was just reading people's comments online and applied it to this situation, that wouldn't make much sense now, would it? The comments made last time that were found on Google Translate were just random, normal conversation topics, with no sense of coherence or theme, but this time, there is a very strong theme. And I think, because of this reason, we can just throw out the theory that Google is still reading random people's comments from the internet. But if we throw that out, what else does that leave us within the realm of believability? One theory that has been thrown around a lot is the idea that groups of people are using the suggest and edit feature on Google Translate to trick the system into thinking that these nonsensical phrases are actually translations into the human language. Personally, I don't believe that this theory is correct.
That just seems like way too much effort for such a small or simple joke.
But if it's just a practical joke played by a group of internet users, great. More power to you. That just seems like more effort than it's worth to me, especially since the editing feature that is provided by Google is no more than a suggestion, meaning that Google can ignore these changes fairly easily. Some of the more extreme theories point the blame at religious cults, but I personally don't believe that due to the same reasons as I mentioned above. So if mass suggestions or religious cults don't make much sense, then what does? One clue that helps us explore this topic further is the limited number of languages that this actually works in. If you want these interesting results, you'll have to change the input language into either Hawaiian, Somali, or Maori. These languages operate very differently than English, as they originated from entirely different evolutionary tracks. And since most of these crazy outputs are created by putting odd English into a format that is fundamentally different than the one that the AI is trying to read, it produces equally odd results. Okay, that logic makes sense, I guess. Redundancy in, redundancy out. But where does the religious stuff come in? Well, that, my dear viewer, might come from a more reasonable place than you think. A few years ago, Google Translate changed its system into one of a neural network. After all, programming every single language into every single other language is nearly impossible. But if you could create an artificial brain to do all the learning for you, that makes your job as a software engineer a lot more feasible. But a brain can't just create its own information or learn on its own. It needs outside material that it can learn from and create its own conclusions. This AI was going to need a lot of information in order to accurately learn the many intricacies of the human language. Not only that, they were going to need a vast library of items that had been pre-translated into many of the world's languages, and getting a library of that size and magnitude would not be very easy. After all, translating books and texts used to be a very expensive and time-consuming process. But what if all that work had been done before? Like, hundreds of years before, in a collection of books that are not copyrighted and have been translated into almost every other language in the world. That's right. What if Google used religious texts such as the Bible, Torah, and Quran to educate and enhance their Google Translate neural network? Now, I'm not saying that these are the only texts that Google used to educate their system. After all, many of these texts are written and translated into older, outdated forms of themselves. But what if Google used these as a skeletal framework for the neural network and added other texts and edits to update and fill in the holes within their system? And by typing nonsensical things into their website, it forces the AI to output responses that haven't been covered up or accurately described. After all, Google Translate will always try to find an answer, even if there isn't one to be found. Or Google can just be dinking with us, who knows at this point. Anyways, that's just my opinion. Google has yet to confirm or deny this theory, so it may be right, it may be wrong, but who knows. All that matters is that we have this pretty fun little quirk that all of us can enjoy, until Google patches it, of course. Welp, that's going to do it for us tonight. We are all so glad that you can make it out. If you liked what you saw and you would love to see some more, please like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment down below. But I hope that you all have a great night and a safe trip home. And until next time, au revoir.